You're watching NBC3 News at 5:30.
Good evening. The transition to a new presidential administration is now gaining steam in Washington. One of the guiding hands to make sure the Trump administration gets the tools and access it needs to move quickly and effectively is a professor at Syracuse University's Maxwell School. Matt has more in his Up Close segment tonight. Matt?
Well, Sean O'Keefe has had 4 presidential appointments. He served in the administrations of both Presidents Bush. He's part of a small group that has helped speed up the process of presidential transition. It's a part-time effort. His full-time job these days is sharing his Washington wisdom with the leaders of tomorrow.
I, Sean O'Keefe.
I, Sean O'Keefe.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will
A career of top-level appointment, testing Sean O'Keefe's leadership. At the height of joy,
we have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national
and the depths of sorrow.
It was a crushing disaster. But at the same time, and therefore everybody took it very personally.
O'Keefe now shares his own insider experience with the government leaders of tomorrow at the top-ranked public affairs school in the nation, the Maxwell School.
Do you feel a responsibility towards these students to make sure they're set out in the right course?
Absolutely, and to do your level best to try to help shape their thinking, not the direction they're going to go. That's something each have to choose.
O'Keefe admits he learns from the students of this mobile generation, while they drink up his experience of being in the room with the president.
Do you know how many times you've been in the Oval Office?
I couldn't begin to count.
By the hundreds?
I would say hundreds. I mean, clearly, maybe collectively 100, yeah. Something like that.
Many of those meetings took place in the weeks following 9/11. O'Keefe was the deputy director of the Office of Management and Budget. He was on a small team meeting every day with President George W. Bush in the Oval Office.
Sitting through those kind of sessions, and you realize that's, it has an instant sobriety effect to realize this is deadly serious, and how the administration were to respond to things would make a difference in terms of how the outcome would
The flight of Columbia, the International Research Mission, finally underway.
O'Keefe's presidential appointment as NASA administrator put him in charge of the shuttle program during one of its darkest moments.
It's a bright orange yellow out over the nose, all around the nose.
February 1st, 2003, the Columbia blew apart, re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, killing all 7 crew members aboard.
Did you meet with the president after the shuttle?
Oh yes, regularly. Yeah. Spoke to him. I was in Florida when the Columbia was lost, and the first call I made was to him. So he was at Camp David at the time, so I caught him over that weekend there and spoke to him several times that day. And then when I got back to Washington that night, the next morning went in to see him and briefed him on all the details of what was involved.
What was he like that day?
Very somber about the whole thing. I think he realized the scope and involvement of this and the tragedy itself. And his first immediate question to me was, in the first phone call I ever made, telling him what had happened, his first question was, tell me where their families are right now. That was the first thing he thought about. And it also motivated me from that moment forward to always have that be the first thing in my mind.
That's a lesson he shares with students, using the Shuttle Columbia as a case study.
Number of people within the agency who I heard from or were translated of, who heard from, all found that to be absolutely objectionable.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division.
As for lessons for the president-elect?
Do they have any way of realizing what that job will be like once they get it? Even though I know, especially Secretary Clinton has been there, and Donald Trump is a whole nother animal we haven't seen before, I suppose. But do they have any sense of what that job will be like till you're the one?
I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine either one of them having nearly the depth of what they need. And I like to think that either one of them or maybe both or whatever, have the presence of mind to be mindful of what they don't know. I hope. Because this is no way that you could feel that until you've been in that capacity. I mean, I certainly can't imagine it.
Obviously, we spoke with Sean O'Keefe a few days ago before the outcome of this election. He also added something that really caught my attention. This time of transition, our United States government is fully aware how vulnerable it is to outside actors right now. That the transition really has to be smooth, otherwise we could become victims of some type of attack, terrorist or otherwise. And he says there are examples of efforts to do that in the past. We're going to talk more about that tonight at 11.
Such a wealth of knowledge here in Syracuse.
He's been in the room.
Yeah.